that I think even the investigators themselves have acknowledged that when this video evidence was presented, that it changed it changed the way that they were looking at this case. And I do think that is an example of how body cameras worn by police officers could have a positive impact.
Presidential Press Secretary Josh Earnest on the use of police body cameras following that deadly shooting of a black man by a white officer in North Charleston, South Carolina. Alongside Miranda Kahn, J.D. Hayworth. Joining us now, former FBI Assistant Director Ron Hosko, who is currently the president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund. Ron, the basic question is this: are body cams for cops the answer?
JD, I think that body cameras would be a significant step in the right direction. But we have to manage our expectations. Body cameras are not going to be the answer to every question in policing. Professionalizing police, training police, building in that integrity, building in their understanding of the law on the use of deadly force, community partnership and outreach and engagement with the community. All of those are going to play a role. But body cameras, I think, are going to be a step in the right direction right now, where trust has been eroded.
But Ron, you're not going to be able to see what the officer is necessarily doing. In other words, you're not going to have the same angle of the situation like we did looking at that cell phone video with this officer that was killed in Charleston, right?
You know, Miranda, there are going to be many fits and starts with body cameras. They are going to be imperfect. They're going to fail in a moment of crisis. They're going to fail outside of crisis where an officer's body camera just isn't working that day and they're not carrying it. There's going to be data failures. There are going to be all kinds of issues related to body cameras, including us and particularly the media realizing this is not going to be video on demand. So body cameras will be imperfect, but I think to the extent that they start to rebuild some lost trust with the community, they are a step in the right direction. There's going to be cost factors associated with body cameras, and too often governments will respond on the backside of a crisis. So they'll need a crisis before my municipality comes up with the money to buy body cameras for my police department. You're going to see that across the country. There's not a uniform solution here.
And of course, we note that North Charleston, South Carolina is buying those body cameras right now. A lot of reaction to this shooting by a police officer. For example, former New York Police Commissioner Bernie Carrick had some comments about the shooting and about the officer involved.
If he's convicted of these charges of murder, there's going to be an enormous, sentence, anywhere from 20, 25 years to life. I don't know the laws in South Carolina, but that was pretty much what I would imagine. It's going to be a very high classification of incarceration, maximum, medium security, and he's going to have a rough time ahead of him.
Ron, we just talked about the limits of video. In this case, we have that cell phone video, and this guy basically has been convicted in the court of public opinion. Are we taking a detour around due process with this officer?
Well, the video is compelling. It's chilling. We're seeing the death of a man running from police. And I am not ready to convict this officer. He's entitled to the presumption of innocence, although that is difficult to do when you have a video of this nature. He has the entitlement to all the lawful processes of our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. But I think for him personally, it's going to be an uphill battle to prevail. Obviously, we don't see what happened between the time that Mr. Scott flees the vehicle and the time that this other cell phone video is activated. There's an encounter in there that has yet to be fully defined.
Ron, we also, because you were talking about other video, they just released the dash cam footage of the incident.
Right.
And it doesn't show the shooting itself, but it does show the moments leading up to that. And we're looking at it right now. The officer pulled him over for a routine traffic stop. He goes back to his car, and that's when Scott walked out and ran. And we want to get your reaction to that when we come back.
That's right. We're going to have to take a break right now, Ron, and also wherever you're watching, we'll take a look at that video in full. I believe we have the man who eventually was shot. He flees the scene. That adds to the challenges here.
Right.
Challenges of time. More with Ron Hosko right after this.
I just have to take one day at a time. What will happen will happen. And that's the way it'll be. But I can only hope that it's not forever.
The mother of Officer Michael Slager, the North Charleston, South Carolina police officer who on video shot an unarmed black man who died. Let's continue our conversation with Miranda Kahn and Ron Hosko, who joins us via Skype. Ron is the president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund.
Ron, I want to go back to that video that we were talking about. The police department just released that dash cam video. If we can pull that up. The officer, Michael Slager, there he is. He pulled him over, and then there you can see, as he's getting ready to look up some information, the officer's in the car. We see Walter Scott run out and flee from the scene. Does this change anything?
Miranda, I don't think it changes it substantially. There's still a number of unanswered questions. What did Officer Slager know other than that he had a driver fleeing his car? And then it's going to be incumbent on Officer Slager and his defense to fill the gap between that first flight from the car and what we saw on the cell phone video. Something happened in there. We heard on one news report from the person who took the cell phone video that there was an encounter between the officer and Mr. Scott, that the officer might have had Mr. Scott on the ground, and for whatever reason then Mr. Scott decides to flee. It's going to be incumbent on Officer Slager's defense to tell a judge or a jury what formed that understanding of an immediate and potentially deadly threat to him or others to fulfill the requirements of the Constitution and case law that says shooting Mr. Scott as he was fleeing was the right thing to do. That's a high bar. That's going to be difficult for Officer Slager's defense team to get over.
Ron, we've got about 2.5 minutes left, and you mentioned the man who shot the video with his cell phone. Now, he met the press and he offered some words about this. Let's hear directly from the man who shot the cell phone video.
Like I said, I can hear the sound. I didn't know how a taser sound, but I knew, it was something like electric that it was sounding.
So he's talking about the taser there, and we've heard for so long that tasers will not necessarily put an end to lethality in these interactions between cops and the public, but this whole taser question really does become the ground for controversy in a potential trial, does it not?
Well, it's a piece of the story, and it seems like it sounded like on that piece of that cell phone video that the officer had deployed the taser, or you could hear the sounds of that electricity being generated. But tasers aren't always perfect, and depending on how many layers of clothing a person might have, the barbs of a taser, if it had been shot, have to make contact and have to connect, and it could be, as here, the taser didn't work.
Right, and it might not be the first time that Officer Michael Slager used excessive force. Another man has now filed a lawsuit saying the officer tased him without being provoked. That incident happened back in 2013. So some are saying, is this possibly a history of abuse? Are people speculating too early?
Right. All of this is, anecdotal right now, and of course, to build a case, you need evidence. Video evidence, which we have here, is very compelling. It's going to be important to know what was in Officer Slager's mind that escalated and elevated his threat assessment with respect to Mr. Scott. And so prior uses of force backed by what? That's an important question. Allegations are one thing. Is there proof of it? And again, that goes back to our conversation about body cameras. If Officer Slager had a body camera on the last time, could that encounter have been avoided? Could it have been analyzed?
And that's a question that will continue. Ron Hosko, you have our thanks for your analysis of what went on, and we'll be right back.